The following podcast is brought to you by the Ebb Tide Treatment Center. Many people wrestle with addiction. You don't have to. Reach out to the Ebb Tide Treatment Center, where they wish to empower each individual encountered with the support, hope, and tools required for long-term sobriety, priding themselves on providing the best possible treatment experience for you and your loved ones based on unique needs. They're committed to breaking the stigma that plagues those suffering with addiction and their families by educating and bringing awareness to the community. The Ebb Tide Treatment Center provides individual and group therapy, multiple recovery pathways for support, evidence-based clinical support, integrated aftercare social reintegration, personalized treatment planning, program addressing whole life health, and Vivitrol program, all available. If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction, reach out to them at ebbtidetc.com or call 844-430-4357. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of AIW's. The card is going to change. We're going to bring you guys up. We kind of a somber episode last week, but we need to talk about it. We need to put it out there and let you know everything that happened, what we went through, and what Chandler went through. On this week's episode, we're going to try to bring it back up, and we're going to talk about Absolution, which happened in July. But before we get to that, of course, we want to thank all of our sponsors that help us bring this show to you free each and every week. We want to thank Angelo's Pizza, which, of course, you can try Angelo's Pizza at any of our live events at Mount Carmel. And if you want something other than their pizza, we encourage you to head to Angelo's on Madison Avenue in Lakewood, Ohio. It's award-winning pizza, but they have so much else that they can offer you. Also, thanks to Smart Mark Video. You mentioned this episode is about Absolution, and that's at smartmarkvideo.com. Download the MP4 or purchase the DVD along with plenty of more in the AIW library in which you can purchase and watch. And as always, thanks to Jack Prints, who takes care of all of our printing and graphic design needs, flyers, banners, merchandise that you purchase, literally anything that you can think of. They've got that for you. They do it for us already. Head to jackprints.com.
That's JAKPrints.com.
That's right, and that voice that you just heard is none other than the president of AIW, Matt Wadsworth. He will be joining me on this episode, as well as always, as the owner of AIW, John Thorne.
Hello.
There you go. And my name is Steve Guy. I'll be your moderator of sorts. And as I mentioned, we're talking about Absolution. Absolution 12, John Thorne. 12 years in the making.
That's a long time.
We've been doing this for a while.
And before we get into that, I just wanted to say Jack Prince has given us a new discount code.
Ooh, there we go.
You can save up to 20% off all of your orders of $25 or more. It is a multi-use code. It cannot be combined with any other offer. Maximum discount will be $200 off of your order. And that promo code is Absolute, the number 2, CLE. Absolute 2 CLE to save up to 20% off your order at jackprints.com.
You can save up to $200. That's a pretty substantial amount right there.
Yeah, let's make some merch. Let's get some stuff printed up. Even if you don't want to sell merchandise, just get a fucking vinyl banner printed up and hang it outside your door.
There you go.
Let your neighbors know who the fuck you are.
Yeah, show them what's up.
That would have been a great way to introduce yourself to the new neighborhood.
That might just do it. It's gonna be 20% off.
There you go. You're welcome, folks. Saving you some dollars. At least we're trying to here at AIW.
Jack Prince literally prints everything that you can imagine. So use that promo code. Every little bit you use it, they kick a little bit back to us, helps us pay for our podcast hosting and all this equipment that we have that we've got on a credit card that's still not paid off. Equipment. So yeah, that's all I got to say about that. That's my plug ski.
All right. Well, if you folks, and we know that most of you do, as you've listened to AIW's The Card is going to change. You know, at this point, we released an episode a few weeks ago, which we recorded with none other than Swoggle. He sat in with us, and we mentioned on that episode that we were recording the night before Absolution 12. So really, the story starts the night before Absolution 12, John Thorne. We had the usual meeting, I guess you would call it. It was you, myself, Swoggle, and Shayna Baszler hanging out.
We go out for a little corporate meeting.
Retreat? Yeah, meeting. I don't know what you would call it.
It's actually just drinking at some shitty bar.
Does that happen?
What bar was that? The Richland?
The Richland Cafe. You want to give them the shout out? Fake Becky Lynch?
Oh, man. Shout out.
Shout out to fake Becky Lynch, who was wearing underwear, Swoggle. just to be known.
Swoggle's got a weird thing with his bartender. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that. So that was the night before. And then the next day, of course, we have our typical business meeting. I think maybe some people want to know, we relocated our business meeting because our usual office left a little bit to desire. So we shifted gears, went to a new business location, had our business meeting there, myself, John Thorne, and Swoggle, and it was there that we learned...
And Nick Sanka.
And bartender Nick Sanka, that's right, he made it out for this meeting. Always good to have the bartender there, especially since we were...
Just getting things organized for the day. We've got a big day ahead of us.
We were talking about having new beer at Absolution 12. We got you guys some platform beer, tested that out, let us know if you liked it or not. So had to have bartender Nick Sanka there.
Yeah, that deal came together pretty down to the wire to get the platform beer sponsorship for Absolution. If you guys want us to try to get that going forward, tweet us and let us know you want to see platform beer back at the beer stand. If not, you'll have to deal with your PBRs.
Yeah, there you go. And then it was while we were sitting at the meeting also that we found out.
Hold on, little segue. PBR, official sponsor of Wrestle Rager 2 Electric Boogaloo. Thanks to PBR for sponsoring Wrestle Rager 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah, and now that's class. Thanks for everybody who came out this past weekend. Hope you guys had a great time.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun.
Yeah, different environment. We'll get back to that. But, we're sitting at this business meeting, and as we had already announced to everybody, our guest of honor at Absolution 12, huge meet and greet for all of you, a great seminar for guys up and coming in the business, none other than the enforcer, Arn Anderson. And
he almost didn't make it.
There you go.
It wouldn't be Absolution without it.
Yeah. If you listened to the Swoggle podcast, you know that already Dave the Potato was very excited about picking up Arn Anderson.
Yeah, he thought he was getting that contract from the WWE.
Thought he was going up there. And instead, that quickly turned into, hey, man, not sure when Arn Anderson's going to make it.
Yeah, so, they made their arrangements the day or two before. And then Potato goes to the airport to get him. He gets a phone call from Arn. He's delayed. Gets another phone call from Arn. He's delayed again. Arn was supposed to land. He's not there. Gets another phone call. He's still not on the plane. So this goes on and on and on. He's supposed to land at 1 p.m. and his seminar was going to start at 3 p.m.
Can you tell everybody what your conversation with Arn Anderson was? His plan of that day?
Oh, he wanted to go get a good pump on, so he's looking good for the meet and greet.
Arn's still a thick dude.
Yeah, he still wanted that extra pump.
That was a big, that was a big part of him agreeing to do all this was he was going to have time to go hit the gym and get a good pump in, so he's looking good for the meet and greet. So I'd made arrangements with Old School Iron. That's where our wrestling school is. Arn Anderson was going to go in there and he was going to clang and bang some iron and get pumped up for everybody at the meet and greet. So he's looking jacked, baby. In the words of Booker T on that one weird pay-per-view pre-show.
Yeah,
looking jacked, baby. Arn wanted to look jacked for all of you in Cleveland at Absolution 12. Arn did not get the chance to look jacked as he wanted.
I was gonna say he still looked jacked.
Yeah. He's jacked as fuck.
Not a small dude.
He's still jacked as fuck, but he didn't get a chance to get that fucking swell going. Because Arn was supposed to land at 3, or he was supposed to land at 1. His seminar was supposed to start at 3. Arn Anderson landed at 3:30. did not have time to hit that pump, but came straight from the airport to the seminar. Everyone was already there, warmed up, waiting for him. He literally just, went from the airport into Dave the Potato's car, went right to Mount Carmel, walked in with his bags, and went right to the ring and said, "For those of you who don't know, my name is Arn Anderson," and just started doing his seminar. For everyone says the seminar was awesome. I won't reveal too much of it because none of you paid to do it.
Yeah, if you didn't pay, screw you.
But
Don't give any
pay for the
tidbits
next
out.
one.
everyone says it was very informative, and potentially some things could be happening for some guys in the future, based on their performance at the seminar, which is good. Which is why you should probably do every seminar you can that has a WWE employee at it.
As one of the top creative minds
I hear
at
there's
Raw.
another one. There's another one coming up soon.
Yeah, Dean Malenko's coming up, also a WWE employee.
In the next couple of weeks here, folks. September the 15th, back in Mount Carmel.
There's still probably 5 spots remaining, so you should probably sign up for that. But anyway, everyone was very, very excited about the Arn Anderson clinic. It goes about 2 hours, and then he's all sweaty, and he wants to go take a shower. So for those of you who are wondering why we opened a little bit later than 6 p.m., because Arn Anderson wanted to take a shower. He couldn't get that fucking swell on.
Couldn't get swole.
Not only did he want to look jacked for you, he wanted to make sure he was nice and clean.
He doesn't want to be
and smell
sweaty.
nice.
He doesn't want people to be like, "Hey man, you met Arn Anderson? How was that?" Well, it kind of smelled, man.
Yeah, he did. So he shot back to his hotel real quick and took a shower and freshened up. And just like the seminar, we had doors open, and he rolled in and went to his table and just started doing the meet and greet right from there. He was nothing but awesome. Like
I was going to say
fantastic.
he couldn't have been nicer.
right. Like, I mean, you never know what you're going to get when you book people, especially these guys from, a different era. He's essentially been wrestling for like 30 straight years, or been involved, in major contracted wrestling for 30 straight years. So, you never know what you're going to get. This guy works for WWE. He's a very high-ranking official. He could have been a total dickhead, and everybody would have accepted it.
And the guy's in the Hall of Fame.
And
4 Horsemen.
he could not have been cooler and just more chilled out, like awesome dude. Kept calling me the brass, which made me laugh. I kept asking where the brass was, and asking me if everything went okay. I guess he very much enjoyed his experience because Monday at Raw, he was telling people that know us how much fun he had. So shout out to everybody that attended the clinic and participated in the meet and greet. Arn Anderson was bragging about all of you backstage at Raw on
That's
Monday.
a great impression. Which also, as we're giving shout-outs related to Arn Anderson, big shout-out to Kurt Hawkins.
Yeah.
Our
It
wonderful
was
friend
a
there.
big
was
going to bat.
Yeah, he was a big, I won't go into the whole how this came to be, but you can't just book a WWE employee. There are channels that you need to go through and things you need to do, and Kurt Hawkins was a big factor in kind of, moving this along for
Greasing
us.
the wheels a little bit.
And a lot of people are like, oh man, why were you guys booking Kurt Hawkins before? Like, he wasn't doing all these cool moves on your shows. Kurt Hawkins is a fucking well respected worker.
He's fantastic.
And better, I've said it before, better in the ring than most people realize. And a good dude who, went to bat for us when, honestly, when I had this idea, we definitely needed somebody to go to bat for us because it's not an easy process what I had to go through. And what I'm, but it went well, and now the door is open for more in the future. And I'm just going to leave it at that. I don't want to say too much, but shout out to Kurt Hawkins for, helping this happen.
Well, and so now let's get into the event itself. It's Absolution 12. We were all excited about it. But again, as this comes off of a somber episode, it does start on a somber note. For those of you who attended, we did the 10 bell salute for Chandler,
and I mean,
and we couldn't not.
Before that happens, I could not be there for it. I didn't want to. I did not want to get myself in that kind of headspace before the event started. I know Matt Wadsworth, you were there. There was a private locker room meeting that was essentially just for talent and staff without me. And I guess you could probably speak on that a little bit better. I specifically did not want to be there, not only to not get myself into that headspace, but I think that there is at times needs to be a disconnect between the boys and the management.
Sure.
And this was for the boys, and I guess you could explain that what exactly happened.
Yeah, I mean, it started as a fairly standard one for us. The locker room meetings, not necessarily every show, but traditionally we have them. BJ Whitmer used to be a big part of it, and Josh Prohibition's kind of taken on that role as a little bit of a locker room leader. And obviously this was a show that it was needed. It was the first one after Chandler passed. So he explained that we were going to do, in addition to all the normal rules, he explained that we were going to be doing a 10-bell salute. We'd like to have everyone down at the ring, and just kind of open the floor up if anybody else had anything they wanted to say. And Eddie Kingston stepped up, and King's a guy that's been around for quite some time, and even more than Chandler. I mean, he brought up he's seen a lot of his friends pass. He's lost some guys that he was real close to, and he talked about how hard this one kind of hit him, losing Chandler, and the relationship he had with Chandler, as he's been around with us for a number of years as well. And it was, I mean, when you see a guy like King break up a little bit and get emotional, it kind of sets the tone and lets you know the kind of guy, some of these guys like a Tom Lawler never met Chandler.
Right.
Some of these guys came along after Chandler had gotten sick. So they realize he meant something, but they see somebody more than just us talking about it. They see Eddie Kingston talking about it. Eric Ryan stepped out, and you saw all of us involved with the show had the armbands on.
He was the one that got those.
He was the one
made.
that
Eric got
that
those
had
made.
them made and set it up, and he let us know in the locker room. He provided them down there for anybody, and had a paint marker to write whatever you wanted to, something that stuck you close to Chandler.
Yeah, I know. A lot of people. I think mine might have been different than everybody else's. Mine was like a nice.
Yours was
one.
actually a sewn on one.
He gave everybody kind of like these blank canvases and a marker so they can write their own personal message to Chandler. So it wasn't just like this, generic, just Chandler or CB or initials or anything like that.
It was uniform but personal to each person.
Yeah. So everyone can kind of express themselves because these are a bunch of wrestlers. They're not the most willing to open up. Everyone's supposed to be a tough guy, a tough girl, or whatever you want to call it. So Eric kind of wanted to do this to kind of provide people a somewhat of a way to express themselves and kind of maybe get that off their chest, whatever they wanted to say in their own private way.
Yeah, especially if you didn't want to speak on it, but you still want to show something. And also on that note, Eric had plenty of them in stock with the idea in mind. What he did do is, let me bring this for the fans, because as we've talked about here before, and anybody's heard us just in person, we talked about Chandler. He was as much a part of the fans' lives as he was the boys in the locker room and everybody else. So there are a lot of fans that felt close to him, and Eric provided those armbands for them. So thank you to the fans that went ahead and really, because this was done on donation. Eric donated the bands, and then you folks donated that money. So thank you for those of you who, quote-unquote, purchased them and donated that money to help out Chandler's family, because that's what you did with that money if you gave some to Eric for those armbands and created your own personal message. So that was
Eric
awesome.
did make the point downstairs during the meeting. He said, listen, I'll have them at my merch table, but it wasn't like, oh, you have to send them over to me to get them. He said, you have somebody down there, somebody asks about it, somebody wants one, let me know. We'll pass it down. We'll pass the box down, whatever they want to throw in. He said, I won't even know at the end of the night what's in the box. He said, I'm not opening it. When all is said and done, I'm just going to walk over and hand that box to Chandler's mom, because Chandler's family was there that night.
Which, was the next thing I was going to say as we do the 10-bell salute. His mother is there. His stepfather is there. his grandmother, his brother.
I think his stepfather wasn't there, but his uncle.
You know what? You're right. I think his uncle was there
because Chandler does have a stepbrother that has some developmental disabilities, so the stepfather had to stay with him. But his uncles were there, his cousins were there, his brother, his mother, his grandmother was there. Which I thought was good because it's. I don't think people realize, I guess a lot of you are listening to this, you're in the industry or you're fans of wrestling. You don't realize that like promoting or being involved in wrestling isn't that cool to your family. Like it's just a thing that you do. You know what I mean? And it's maybe to some of them, it's a thing you never grew out of as a child. So, I thought that it was special that Chandler's family could finally come and see what he was dedicating his life to, because the way people think and their perception in their head of what it is we do compared to actually what it is we do is totally different. So, when his family being able to see that, I thought was a very special thing because, like when my mom passed away, she never came to see AIW. Like, she came to the first ever thing I did when I was 15, and that was it. So, that was her perception of basically what I did. But when she passed away, she never got to see what it turned into. And that was like a big kind of regret for me. So like after she passed away, I made sure all my family came to a show once. Just so they could see it, so they could be like, look, I'm, like this is what I'm doing.
Well, and look, for those of you who are in attendance, and I mean, the estimation is what, John, 600-700 strong, maybe.
I would say between 5 and 6. I don't know. Like I said, I've said in the past, we don't keep very good books. But I can tell you that pre-sale was over 450 tickets.
And that is standing room only for sure.
That is legit pre-sale, and we've sold a lot more tickets at the door.
There was a lot of walk-up as well.
So I can't put a number on it. It's over 5. I won't say anything more than 5. Because I don't know. I just know it's over 5. I'm not gonna sit here and say it's some crazy number when I don't know for sure, but it's over 500. And for everyone to come out and support like that, and his family to see it, I think really kind of like registered like, wow, like this is what he was spending all his time on.
Well, and to go beyond that, what I want to say is thank you to those people, because as the wrestlers, as I stood inside the ring with Pedro, and Pedro spoke about Chandler, and then they ring the bell and we do the 10-bell salute, and everybody surrounding the ring in terms of talent, staff, and pounding and smacking on the ring apron for Chandler's family to not just witness that, but then those of you who came out strong to give off that thank you Chandler chant. That wasn't just we're saying thank you Chandler a couple times, but
it went on for a while.
It went on for a while. Yeah, I mean, and I don't think it's crazy to say it went on for a couple minutes, maybe.
And it's no consolation for them to lose a family member, but his mom did speak to me, and she was just so overwhelmed with like positivity.
Yeah,
probably for the first time since it all happened, because she was just like, she was so moved by everybody, especially the crowd. I mean, there's only so much that I or anyone else could go and have a conversation with her, but to feel that, that was a feeling. That's what I'm
saying. I'm standing in that ring, and as much, and John, you and I talked about this multiple times since Chandler passed. Like every time we feel like we're going to be sad, something happens, and we laugh and we smile about it. And this was one of those moments where I'm standing in there, and Pedro's talking, and I'm like, I'm gonna lose this, and then I gotta come back out and I gotta start the show, man. I don't know, I can do this. But then that crowd takes over, and all of that happens, and I'm standing there, and I'm looking out at the family, I'm looking at all these guys surrounding the ring, and I'm feeling that crowd.
And it was hard to be sad.
It was hard to be sad.
It was.
You got all those goosebumps.
Because during itself, and I remember one of the things I remember about it, Aaron Bauer is a couple people down from John and I. John and I were standing next to each other in the ring, and Eric Ryan was right next to me, and I think Aaron was on the other side of Eric. And he made a quick beeline for us right after. He checked on both of us. Said, you're okay. And I remember what I told him in time, I said, well, I got a decent walk to the commentary table. By the time I get there, I should be composed. I'll be okay, you know. But it was. I mean, it really kind of, it was just to stand there and take all that in.
It was like, I wasn't sad. I was more proud. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
It was like, very well, like when I went out there, I was dreading it. Like, totally dreading doing it. I think everybody was.
Well, because you went to stop short of the ring. Because you, Steve and Pedro were the first two through, and you and I were right after them.
Yeah, I was just going to do it.
We stopped almost at the end of the aisle there. We were a good 15 feet away from the ring, and you said, let's stop here. And then as guys filtered out, you said, okay, come on. You know?
I just didn't realize how many people were coming out in there. And, you know, there was people stayed for the seminar, and all sorts of people just wanted to come out and give respect. So, like, we end up filling that whole area and around the ring. But I was dreading it. And then the energy, you know what I mean? Like, I know that can never be recreated.
No.
Ever again. But, like, if you could bottle that up, that is like the most positive feeling that I've probably ever felt in my life, which is, it sounds awful to say, but it was just like this weird sense of like, wow, like this is like serious love.
Well, and that's absolutely what it does seem like you're making an odd statement because of the situation that led to it, but it wasn't the situation, it was the atmosphere, it was that outpouring of support. I think I had tweeted out after the show, essentially had said, you know, thank you for everyone that came out, that supported us, that showed that love and support, because it really did mean the world to all of us. It was, you know, that's a moment that could have been one of the hardest things that any of us ever did, and there were 500-600 people strong just lifting us through it.
Yeah, I mean, going into it, like John said, I was dreading it as well. In my mind, I'm thinking, I might be that person, might have to be the person that talks about this. And I talked to Pedro because I knew that he has known Chandler so much longer. I said, Pedro, do you want to be this person? And we kind of looked at each other like, I don't know that either one of us can handle this. But I said, this is for you.
Pedro said, like, you know, people had asked, do you want anything to be said? And I didn't officially.
I would say initially we had said we weren't going to say anything.
I didn't want anything to be said, but I told Pedro, I said, use your discretion if it needs to be done, because people wanted me to talk, and I just did not. I was not in a position to do that. And I told Pedro, I said, if you feel it's right, let's do it. You know what I mean? But if not, you know, let's just see how it goes, honestly. And you know, he said some things. And I think that added to kind of the positivity.
Yeah.
And you know, then everyone kind of went to the back, and you know, we composed ourselves for a few minutes and got the show going. And
I thought of this. If you watch the DVD or anything, Gary puts this out there. Literally, I said this into the camera as I'm walking out once we started the show, because this was a thought of mine. Was when the first time I ever ring announced for AIW. The only people I really knew within AIW were you guys and, of course, Chandler, because, you know, I was doing another podcast at the time, and I had a good relationship with John and Chandler, and it was just spur of the moment that I ended up ring-announcing that first show.
Well, because I almost had to do double duty.
Yeah.
You were just doing pre-show stuff.
So I walk out there, and I get in the ring, and my moment of calm was to look in the corner of the front door and just look at Chandler and grab it for myself and be like, okay, I see him. I've got somebody here. I gotta be okay. And that's one other thing I said, you know, into the camera, like, this has been a big thing for me. And I've done it every show since. I realized, like, I look out there and I look for him, and I know that can't happen. And I knew that going into it, and that hit me. And I guess for everybody else on here and for everybody else that was in the locker room, me saying that is really just to say, because of moments and stories like that, thank you to everybody for that positivity, that love that John and Wadsworth have talked about. Because for me personally, after thinking that it was going to be somber and I was going to be dreading it, I could not have been more jacked up for that show. I mean, than what that crowd gave me.
And I'm going to tell you, you know, straight up, you know, like we had a few commitments booked, which, you know, throughout the year, and going into Absolution, I wanted to cancel them all.
Yeah.
I wanted to cancel them and just be done. Just because it just did not feel right to me. That crowd changed it and made me kind of realize, and also, his family talking to me saying, like, you can't stop this now. You know what I mean?
That's the last thing he would have wanted.
And I truly did. Going into that day, I wanted to stop until it got going, and I realized it was gonna be okay, and there was everything was going as well as it could. It definitely changed my mind. Going into that day, these August shows that just happened, they were not even scheduled. Those got scheduled.
No, those were
after fact. Yeah,
those
got scheduled like a week later. Worldwide had been trying to get this Now That's Class thing going, and I wouldn't commit to it. He's like, let's do it on this date. He would talk about this date, and I would never say yes. I said yes that night. I said, Monday, go figure it out.
Well, so I mean, again, for all of us, thank you guys. And we just came off of a somber episode. We're not trying to do that, but we didn't cover what Chandler and Absolution together meant to us, leading into the show, and that's part of the Absolution episode. So we want to make sure that we got that out there. We had to.
What's up, everybody? This is Alex Worldwide Keller here, and everyone wants to talk about the strong style these days. Well, this sweatshirt right here I'm looking at from the thrift store Jobber, strong as hell. It is an acid-washed crew neck Great Muta sweatshirt. I could just Lariato, Brainbuster, Shining Wizard, any motherfucker with this thing on. Oh, gotta watch the language. No, it's Japan. You can swear however the much you fucking want. Anyway, at Thrift Store Jobber on Instagram, Etsy, eBay, use the promo code WORLDWIDE and get 10% off. Worldwide.
So now we can go into the show itself, which, as we've alluded to, we were jacked up for, thanks to you guys in the audience getting us in that mindset, ready to go, putting on the best show we can for Chandler, everybody doing their part, and it kicked off
with the Duke.
With the Duke.
It's a little funny story for that. He said, the Duke was a little. I don't know if he was nervous or offended that he was first, but he said, "Oh, I thought you would have started with something maybe a little bit more exciting." I think in his mind, thinking that the old versus new would have went on first,
right?
Well, because at one point that was talked about, I think as of the Tequila Jack show,
it was
of Night of the Creeps. You were saying that was the opener.
I was thinking about it, and then I thought, well, how's the Duke ever going to follow that? And I looked at the Duke and I said, well, it's less about starting hot and more about just getting it over with.
So we have the Duke
because the Duke,
Dominic Guarini.
The Duke was a last-minute replacement. That was supposed to be.
That's what I was going to say.
The build to it was Tolar.
But Tolar ended up getting a new job, and he was sent to Florida on that day. So the earliest that he could get back for the show was 11 p.m., which just was not going to work.
Yeah, they're not going on main event. Right.
So Old Faithful himself, the Duke, got himself on another Absolution card.
Which still makes sense, because when you think back to it, this almost year-long feud with Dominic Guarini has always been somebody and the Duke.
And
whoever Duke hired.
And as much as I bust the Duke's balls, I knew starting with the Duke was the Duke's high spot. Because you put the Duke on anywhere else in that card, and he's not going to get that fresh reaction. I knew that putting the Duke out, the first thing out of the curtain after this big somber moment was going to make people go, yes, we are at a wrestling show. You know what I mean?
We are at Absolution.
I am free to boo and cheer.
This is not, this is not a funeral or a wake. This is a wrestling show. So I sent the Duke out there first to set the tone for the night, which was, all right, everybody, now it's time to have fun. Let this fucking guy have it. And, the Duke doesn't understand maybe that is his spot. The Duke gets very upset when we talk about him on this podcast. I just want to say that right now.
I'll say it if you won't. He delivered at Absolution.
And I knew that he would in that position. But I don't think he understands that like everyone is in on the joke of like fucking with him now.
Yeah,
and
he came out before I even did intros. Before Dominic Garrini comes out, and maybe when they were both in the ring before I even introduced him, because I think it happened on 2 occasions. He got a Comic-Con chance just because of his appearance on this on The Card Is Going to Change.
Yeah, so I knew I knew the starting number one. It didn't matter what the Duke did in the ring. His being the first thing people saw was going to be his high spot. He didn't have to do anything after that, honestly, because I knew that was going to set the tone for the night that, hey, this is a wrestling event, and this is the number one guy that we could fuck with, and we're just going to get the night started. And, I thought it was a good match. The Duke was, definitely went out there and was trying to prove himself, in a different aspect.
It's not just a young man's game. He decided he wanted.
Well, and he did feed me beforehand, and with the fact that something that even I can't take credit for knowing. He said he had never submitted in AIW since his first match. He said he tapped out to JT in his first AIW match, and according to him, had never submitted since then.
Of course, he would know that.
He keeps track of his record.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, and so that was that. We've talked about the Duke enough.
But I will give the Duke props that he started the show off hot.
There you go. And then as rivalries were concerned, this was a brand new one, courtesy of Back to the Future Cup. But people were ready for it. Frankie Flynn and PB Smooth.
And, this goes into our, continuing to try to develop guys going forward. This is just a perfect example of that. Two homegrown guys out of our school, getting a chance to showcase themselves on the big show. And as you'll notice, if you pay attention, there are a lot of our students that are coming into their own and becoming, I don't want to say stars, but featured players on the show that people do not dread to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a more descriptive tone.
People looked forward to this.
And look at especially the new attitude Frankie, after he jumped PB Smooth, after he turned on him.
Got that haircut.
People genuinely enjoy. I mean, his promo was just incredibly intense afterwards. And people are genuinely, he beat the hell out of Parker Pierce.
Right.
For real?
For real, yep.
As we covered on that episode. So, I mean, people were excited to see him when he came out.
And I think, this just kind of goes to mine and Chandler's vision of when we started the school, to not shove them down people's throats, but have it be a slow burn to where people accept them at their own pace. Because we very well could have just put them on every single show and just rode those ticket sales and said fuck it, you know what I mean?
You burned them out, yeah.
Right? But we were kind of looking at this school from day one as more of a long-term project to develop, for literally develop for the future of AIW, especially
Mr. Whiskers.
Whiskers had something to say to me,
especially since the current landscape of independent wrestling is getting very, very, very thin.
Sure, absolutely.
As well as the video market is not what it used to be. Prices, not prices, but income off video sales is going down, and prices for these select premier talents that are left are going up. So economically, it's sooner or later the bubble is going to burst on a lot of things. So a few years ago, we said, we're going to try to actually really develop guys and not shove them down people's throats and handle it with kid gloves, so to speak. And this is a perfect example of slow burning these guys to where now, they're not in the main event, but, here they are featured on the biggest show of the year, and people were excited to see them.
And you could create a story that is unique to your promotion by doing that.
Right.
You might see PB Smooth and Frankie Flynn and some other promotion down the line because they are definitely getting a lot of work elsewhere.
Well,
the AIW students are,
yeah.
But you're not going to see it created in this aspect.
And people know that they're AIW guys at this point. They've been branded.
Sure.
And this match was a perfect opportunity to bring in more people and feature them, which is
that's what I was going to say next.
The debut of we planted the seeds. People didn't even probably realize it. PB Smooth cuts that promo and he says, "Frankie Flynn, you better find a supporting cast." Well,
That's
Frankie
right.
Flynn went out and found a supporting cast, and
Enter the production.
Derek Director, formerly known as Derek Direction, and Colby Red have joined Frankie Flynn's theater troupe. He's got himself a couple of theater goons. So, we're going to see how that develops over time. But,
You've already seen more of them at this point if you've been to our last couple of smaller shows. So keep looking forward to the growth of Frankie Flynn's.
And that's, it's just another way to get more people on. Derek Direction started training at our school, and Colby Red's been training at our school for about a year now. So, it does benefit people to, even if you're trained, to come to our school because, like I said, it's hard for me to sit and book somebody off of video, but if you can and you can come to the school and I can actually see and work with you, and other people there can work with you. This is how these ideas come together. These people were just around, and it's a shout out to Aaron Bauer, who kind of he had a little bit to do with this creative process as well. So sky's the limit as far as I'm concerned with the production and Frankie Flynn and his goons.
Well, and it says a lot about the way that match laid out too, because it's hard, especially on the independents, to cast PB Smooth as an underdog. I mean, he's
true.
a 7-foot savage. He stands out on the indies. It's tough to make it believable. So it was a fun way to find a way to make it believable that Frankie Flynn beats him, and maybe threw a little bit of a wrench in your plans if you thought you had everything figured out that night.
Yeah. Well, and talking about people and goons being involved in matches, the next one, we go into another rivalry match that's been building for some time. It meets its head at Absolution. It's Britt Baker taking on Swoggle. Swoggle, of course, always with dedication personified in his corner. But this one, as we had mentioned previously, a lot of people just came and wanted to pay their respects at Absolution for everything that Chandler built. And because they were there, heck, we had ourselves a Lumberjack match.
Also not the original plan. This was... Swoggle wanted to do a weapons match, but...
Which it partially was. Fans bring the weapons.
Swoggle had these goons. Britt had Space Monkey and Dick Justice helping her out, but Dick Justice was unable to do Absolution because he was booked for a European tour. So I had to think of a way to try to even the odds for the story, so I came up with this Lumberjack idea. Well, then Dick Justice, his tour got canceled the week of Absolution, but we had already announced this Lumberjack match and everything else, so we just rolled with it. But I think it, I think it worked out very well, and I put them on third because I told them, I said, listen, this is the perfect spot for you because this is either going to go very bad, because they were just not gelling, I guess, on certain things.
Right.
Well, and I had said to you, you throw the fans bring the weapons stipulation out there, and we've got absolutely insane fans when it comes to weapons, and they're used to guys like Tim Don's doing this stuff, Eric Ryan, or Nick Gage, to where they make up literally implements of death.
Sure.
And these guys and these people are posting what they're making, and I'm like, it's Swoggle and Britt Baker. Like,
yeah, come on,
what do you think
fans.
they're going to do? Yeah.
I don't know what you're expecting these guys to do. And credit to both of them, they went out there and
let's have
performed.
let's have a little common sense, guys. Come on.
Yeah.
But so anyway, they weren't gelling on some things. I guess creatively, and I said, listen, I'm going to put you on third because this is either going to go very bad and it's going to be on early enough to where people forget about it, or it's going to go extremely well and be very fun, and you guys are going to surprise yourselves. Which I think the latter is what happened.
100%.
I absolutely agree. Yeah.
I think it blew expectations out of the water.
Before the match even started, you bring the Lumberjacks out, and some of those people flew under the radar, but there were
some of these fucking Lumberjacks booked themselves. I'll tell you what.
And what happened is I think you had a lot of guys that came for the clinic, the Arn Anderson seminar.
And I think they were just hanging around. I think they were just hanging around, and maybe some people grabbed them. Like, I know specifically I saw Kobe Durst and Shane Saber. I said, hey, you guys want to be Lumberjacks? Sure.
And even some of those guys, like Jim Nye.
I think that guy booked himself, dude.
Was
the science guy? I got to see this. I go, who booked the science guy? Where did the Alpha One science guy come from?
Mance was in there.
Mance was... And that actually got a reaction because obviously not familiar to AIW now he is, but not familiar to AIW prior to this. Some local fans were familiar with him from other places. So they saw him out there and they were like, holy crap.
Of course, Philly Marino Experience was in there.
Absolutely.
Well, this was also kind of like, not to like sound like a jerk off or whatever, but this was like the WrestleMania Royal Rumble, like Battle Royal.
Get as many guys out there.
This was getting guys on the show.
We want you guys in there, yeah.
You know, they might not have been able to be on the show, like have a match, but it got them out there and, helped include people. You know what I mean? Everyone was picked to play that.
Kaplan came from the concession stand.
Kaplan came over there.
Funny thing about Kaplan. So, Kaplan's been showing up and he's been getting matches when I see him, I think Kaplan specifically showed up way later because I think he likes having matches, but he knows he's like not in the best of shape to have matches currently.
It would have been even later in the show had we started on time, but he didn't know that we didn't do that.
So he shows up, and the Lumberjacks are coming on. I go, Kaplan, get out there and be a Lumberjack, man. He goes, what? I go, you go be a Lumberjack, man. It was Swoggle had already done his entrance. I said, before Brick gets out here, however it happened, in between the entrances, so he grabs 2 beers and he just stumbles his way out to the ring.
Yeah, he legitimately came from the concession stand because right before the match I saw him through the crowd at the concession stand, and then I see him at ringside all of a sudden.
And also making his way out to be a Lumberjack, I had to mention because the crowd enjoyed it. Welcoming back to AIW was Jock Sampson.
Oh, he was actually. I actually told him to go out. So, because he showed up because he could not make Chandler's funeral, so he drove to Cleveland, no expectation of working. He said, this is my wake. This is my show. My respect to Biggins. I'm here. I don't want it to be booked. I just want to come. I want to drink some beers with the boys. I want to hang out. And I said, Jack, you want to be a Lumberjack? And he cracks a beer. He goes, do I got to put my gear on? I said, Jack, you like exist in your gear.
Yeah.
He goes, well, do I got to put my boots on? I said, no, you don't have to untie your shoes. Or no, I think he had flip flops on. I said, you don't have to put your boots on. You can just leave your flip flops on. And he said, fuck yeah, I'll go be a Lumberjack. And he cracked a beer open.
Went out there with a box of cereal.
Yeah. So, I think it was fun. I definitely, Swoggle and Britt are probably 2 talents that I'm probably harder on than most as far as their performances go. And, it's very rare to get a compliment out of me, but I will say that I couldn't have been prouder of them. It ends with the surprise of Adam Cole, not planned, comes together literally an hour before it happens. He was just there to watch, and it's just one of those things that just comes together when people are getting creative, and you allow this somewhat of creative freedom, and you don't I don't micromanage a lot of people, and this just all came together kind of like a last minute thing, and I'll just kind of leave it at that. But I think that's one of the cool things about AIW is you never know what's going to happen, and a lot of times we don't necessarily know what's going to happen either. It just kind of all comes together based on, well, I don't know if it's fate or whatever, but it always seems to work out somehow.
Well, and I love he comes running out there in Laredo Kid's masks. And it's very obviously not Laredo. Laredo Kid has never had this long hair sticking out of the back of the mask.
Which also, he was right behind me, and I didn't know that this was planned because this was happening as we've already started the show. I turn around, I see Laredo Kid mask. I'm like,
Laredo Kid in a Dr. Dan T-shirt.
Right.
So it gets in, and you know, we're kind of on commentary. We're selling this confusion. Apparently, the Laredo Kid's getting involved, and it led to my favorite sign off of a match ever. Probably the greatest line to me of all the times I've worked with Aaron. Is, you know, we're recapping some stuff after the match, and Aaron goes, "Wait a second. Do you mean to tell me that Adam Cole has been the Laredo Kid this whole time?" And I looked at him and I just set the mic down. I was like, that's it. That's how we're ending that match.
Well, and as we move on to the next match, quick shout out to the Philly Marino Experience and the Weird World, who really truly got into character, knowing ahead of time, and all four dressed up as lumberjacks with flannel shirts on. So good for them.
And Worldwide was sober-ish.
Yeah, he was. To start, anyway.
For once.
So the next match we go into, this was a really first time anywhere. A newcomer to AIW. He was welcomed a couple months before by John Thorne at the after party. With all graciousness.
Welcome to the team speech.
Welcome to the team, Tom Lawler. And hey, man, you get Eddie Kingston at Absolution. That's a great welcome to the team.
He had said, you know, I think
he was on board with it.
He wanted that match.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, he and I.
That's how I welcome you to the team. I give you what you want once.
Lawler and I, listen, I've been on board since you brought him up in the discussion for J-Lit. I'm a fan of his going back to his MMA days. You know, obviously a lot of these guys that have made the crossover have succeeded, have, you know, adapted very well. I think Lawler has the most charisma of anyone that's made that crossover.
I think Tom Lawler is the most total package as far as all around professional wrestling goes.
So when the idea of him for J-Lit came up, I was on board. I remember saying at the time, I don't know, you know, I didn't know he had done independent wrestling prior to getting into MMA at the time. So I said, I don't know what he brings in the ring, but he definitely will get it quicker than anybody else. And obviously showed J-Lit weekend. So I remember I was standing at the concession stand with John, and I said, you know, I like it. And he had called Hot Sauce and Eddie Kingston with me.
Right.
J-Lit weekend. And so I said, man, I like him. I'd love to see more of him. And John said, I think I'm going to do him in Kingston. And I was talking to Lawler about it, and he had just done an interview that day. And they had asked him, well, who is there out there? And that was fresh in his mind. He said, I'd love to wrestle either one of them. So he wanted to work Kingston. You know, so when we said, well, hey, we're going to bring you back for Absolution, you and Kingston, and he was on board for it then.
And that was a match that, on paper, it could go either way, probably, in your eyes, John. Did you feel like that we've talked about on this podcast before, did you get cut-off T-shirt and shorts, Eddie Kingston, or did you
we got gear, Eddie Kingston.
We got gear, Eddie. Yeah, it was.
I think it was a lot. So I think that a lot goes into that. You know what I mean? I tell Eddie Kingston, I say, I want it all, man. Kings Road. You know what I mean?
Which, by the way, he listens to this podcast, and on our drive back to Yonkers, that conversation was brought up, and he still thinks it's hilarious.
What, sweatpants?
Gym shorts, Eddie versus Gear Eddie.
Hey, man, go back and,
you're not wrong.
Have a focus group.
You're not
wrong at all.
That too. Yeah.
I want to have a focus group. I want people to watch Gym Shorts Eddie Kingston matches, and I want people to watch Gear Eddie Kingston matches, and I want you to tell me which one fucking delivers. Eddie had the fucking gear on. Eddie was feeling emotional because of Chandler Biggins. He told me, he said, I want I think he might have said this in the meeting. I don't know, because like I said, I wasn't there, but he told me before he went out, he said, listen, I want you to know, and I want everyone to know that Chandler may be gone, but he's not gone, because he's going to live on through these matches that we have on these shows. And he's like,
he absolutely made a comment to that.
And he said, I'm about to go have one of those matches. And I said, all right, Eddie, I see you don't got your fucking sweat shorts on. Let's do it.
And I really think that they did have one of those matches.
They're fantastic. I was actually disappointed. Like, of all the matches that night, that was the one I was most looking for. It's just in my wheelhouse. It's very much a type of match I'm a fan. And there was the one match I didn't call that night. Aaron, I knew Dom would want to call it, and Aaron was doing a lot that night because Joe wasn't there with us. So Aaron had kind of I had given him carte blanche to just pick whatever he wanted to call. So I said, I'm confident. Some of the younger guys I may not be as confident to put with Aaron. I said, I've worked with Dom. He'll be able to work with you, no problem. Do you guys want this one? And then I was downstairs for it. And I was downstairs enjoying the sole air conditioning we had in that building that night. And I was like,
oh, there was air conditioning. There was just too many people.
There was so many people. It wasn't
downstairs
working.
was amazing. It was for the fans that were wondering, about how hot it was upstairs. Downstairs, it was a good 20 to 30 degree drop when you walk down those stairs to the locker
room. I should
room.
say this was the first match of the night where the ring started to take its toll because there were so many people and that AC just couldn't work hard enough. That canvas was pretty wet.
But I was downstairs and I made the trip back up into the heat because I was like, I really got to watch this match.
Yeah, man. And like when I would come up from the locker room, my glasses would fog. So some of us a lot of guys weren't watching the show like usual. A lot of guys were just hanging out downstairs.
No, that locker room was heaven on earth that night.
Some of us didn't get to change out of our Absolution attire and sat ringside in a 3-piece suit the entire time.
Oh,
so.
I took that suit off.
Or the announce table.
I took that suit off as soon as that 10 bell was over, man.
Man, you just admitted to making trips downstairs, Matt Wadsworth.
I made one, and I didn't even stay down there. Actually, I didn't have a choice. That armband, I had to have my son, as many of you probably see, my son comes to the shows with me. I had to have him put the armband on me because I couldn't pull it up over that sleeve.
Mine went under the jacket there, brother. So going from one match into the next in terms of people, another kind of slow rivalry build, recent one as of late, Ethan Page, Sean Schultz in the bull rope matches. We've already talked about Duke and Jock Sampson, and if you listen to this show, one of Ethan Page's favorite matches ever in AIW history.
This match was good. It wasn't Jock and Duke, I'll say that.
No, Jock and Duke.
It was good. It was different. Like I said, I'll put Sean Schultz over to the end of time. I don't think he gets enough credit.
Yeah, sure.
Ethan Page probably gets a ton of credit, so I don't have to say that. But I think the big story of the match here is Ethan Page's speech that he gives after the match, where he essentially just talks to Chandler Biggins, and it's a very emotional moment. I can't really do it justice. You just have to watch it for yourself. That's really the match is good, but that's really the moment that really stands out to me.
I got to spend the entire match ripping on the potato, which is rare as the traditional good guy announcer.
Came off the wrist a few times.
No enforcement from the referee of the sole rule. And I did see people on Twitter complaining afterwards. I'll have you know, we called him out for it on commentary.
Yeah, and it was addressed a couple times during the course of the match. I mean, he was shouting at them.
He was trying to get him, yeah.
But as we've alluded to many times, yes, Whiskers, we hear you. But as we talk about things that happen with Chandler Biggins, every time you think that you're going to be upset, something happens. And I'm standing there ringside, and Ethan Page is just, like you said, talking to Chandler Biggins.
I'll admit that I was backstage, and that his speech made me cry. That was that was the only thing that broke me that day.
I was ready to lose it, and I'm standing there in front of everybody, and I'm like, you cannot lose it. Like, you've still got this. Thank God that was the match before intermission, because we got to take that time, and then on top of that, he's finished talking, and then it dawns on me, I'm like, is Sean Schultz still laying on the other side of the ring? Ethan Page talked for, I don't know, it was like at least a 5-minute, maybe longer promo. It was a good amount of time. And I was thinking, was Sean Schultz been just laying on the other side of the ring the entire time? I walked over, and sure as shit, there he is. And he just starts slowly crawling to the back. And I just picked up the rope like he was a dog. I'll just pretend to walk him to the back. And I'm like, this is my saving grace right now, is him still being in this moment. And everybody just being so pissed that he would not get up and walk up the ramp, crawled his way all the way to the back. And then when he finally did, probably a 2-minute crawl, I just go, and now we're going to take a short intermission break. That saved me from breaking down and just bawling my eyes out after Ethan Page talked there on the mic. So, we hit intermission at that point. With all the emotion taking us up and down, crowd's still great. They're right there with us. Again, thank you all for being there, right there with us, because you kept us going there. We come out of intermission, and what's your thought here, John Thorne? Did you think that this was going to start it hot? Because now we roll into old AIW, new AIW.
Well, my thought was I really wanted to put Yim versus Shayna Baszler there, but I figured that they were girls and they'd be selling merch, so I didn't want them to have to rush and get ready too quickly. So I wanted to put this match on later, but I figured, a lot of these guys would be they would be ready to go after intermission. So that
the students aren't selling a ton of, especially on a show like Absolution, they're not selling a ton of merchandise.
So I figured, let's just roll with it. And again, this was another one of those things, kind of like Swoggle and Britt. It's either going to go really good or really bad. There's going to be no in between. I know that these veteran guys don't really like them that much. To be perfectly frank and honest, they don't. There is legit animosity there for whatever reason. So
I think it comes down to one of the stories we were telling with it that may have a little bit of basis in reality is the concern of losing your spot, of the new guys trying to claim a spot, and some of these older guys that may worry that they're expendable. Yeah,
and these guys showed up learning how to wrestle already in great shape.
Yeah, so, it was either going to go good or bad. There was attempts to maybe, I guess, derail it a little bit throughout the match. A few things don't go as planned, but it still ends up being probably one of the most memorable matches of the evening. The crowd absolutely losing their minds for the entire match, which was my initial thought of how it was gonna go, which is why I wanted to put it on later. Kind of put Yim and Baszler in a tough spot. Their match was great too. I just think it would have been way more memorable if it would have come on at that after intermission spot instead of following the student match. But you live and you learn, and there's never a right or wrong decision. You can always after every show I want to change about 10 different things. It is what it is, but this match I think is off the rails as it got at times. I think it still turned out amazing and was a great showcase for all parties involved, especially the students who I don't know if they were supposed to get beat up that bad. I don't know if the veterans realized that they were just getting them over the more beating that they were giving them.
If the idea was for the veterans to try to be like, hey, we're welcoming you guys to the show, kids.
It just got them. It got them so much more over than probably was initially planned, because they just kept getting back up, and then the crowd just wanted them more and more and more.
Well, and the crowd knew what they're capable of, and they kept waiting for it and waiting for it, and they were waiting for it to build. And this is another one of those matches you talked about with the Lumberjacks earlier. It essentially started out almost as that WrestleMania Battle Royal, because I remember we were looking at an early lineup and there were a couple open slots, and among those listed as being available, you had an Eric Ryan, a Matthew Justice, you had
the Fuckets,
the Fuckets, you had the Studs, and I remember I brought up then, and this was before this batch of students had debuted, so it turned out way better than anything I had in mind. But I was like, well, maybe you do like a new AIW, old AIW, and at the time it was like Gary and maybe Weird World or something against the Studs, and because we were coming off of Matthew Justice having that unbelievable match with Tolar, where kind of old AIW had made a statement.
Next episode, yeah.
So I was like, well, maybe we go with something like that, and it was just a way to get them on the show. And it ended up being, obviously, once this batch of students debuted and showed what they can do, it ended up being so much more than that.
Yeah, and so coming off of how hot that went, like John said, wondering how they follow and how that happens is the women's title match, Shayna Baszler and Mia Yim. And if you follow along AIW Hardcore, you'll realize that really the only woman to defeat Shayna Baszler, or last woman maybe I should say, is Mia Yim. And here Shayna's ran roughshod over all of AIW Women's Division for the better part of the last year.
And, there was going to be more to the story. It's just I wanted promos and things to lead up to it. With everything going on with Biggins, the story here kind of lacked what the original plan was on paper. That's more my fault than anybody else's. But I don't think we did a good enough job of making people realize that, Mia Yim did beat Shayna. She's the only person to beat Shayna.
In AIW.
I think there would have been more drama if we would have been able to better got that point across. But like I said, there was a lot going on, so we did not get that point across as much as I would have liked to.
Yeah, if you watched it on DVD or streaming or anything like that, you get that because we emphasized it on commentary.
Sure,
Dom and I did, but obviously it wasn't. It was alluded to in the build up, but not necessarily explicitly stated.
Yeah. Next match as we roll in here is the Intense Championship. Joey Janela taking on Alex Daniels with, of course, Greg Iron always close by. And that's another one. This was a rivalry that had been built up for the better part of a year. And Joey Janela is just one of those guys the crowd has come to love and adore.
Joey Janela is not the guy in AIW. He is the guy everywhere right
in
now.
independent wrestling currently.
And now, while we didn't get him before everybody else, we were very much early adapters. And I had been ready to make Joey the guy since before the Zandig fall. That kind of sidelined things a little bit.
Yeah, it put him on the shelf.
And, then
which
when
ironically also got him more adulation for their rations.
Right. It ended up being probably one of the best things that happened to his career overall. Just kind of sidelined plans for him in AIW probably a little bit, or not sidelined it, but postponed them a little bit. I wanted Joey Janela to probably win that belt last November, but he got booked for some European tours, and then other things happened, and you got to work around schedules. So then it's like, okay, next best thing, let's just make it happen for Absolution. And here we are at Absolution a little bit later than I wanted it to happen. It was never the plan to make Alex a big longest reigning Intense champion. It just kind of happened by default to let's get Joey ready was sort of the thing, because Joey is not only going to be the guy at AIW. Joey's going to be the guy, unlike some other talents you could book. Joey's going to be a guy that will draw attention to AIW because he goes out of his way. There's a lot of guys that just get booked and that's it, and they just think that's good enough. Joey Janela will go the extra mile to try to draw attention to the promotion and raise the profile of the promotion, which is the proper way to do things if you're a wrestler, And so that was kind of where we were at. It was just kind of like let's get Joey ready. Let's make him a featured player, and we got there and we got it done.
And it really did. It did end up helping this match in terms of story, though, making that long, I guess, transition, so to speak, from where he was to coming into this. You have the Alex going longer and longer with that title reign, and you have Joey close a couple times, and people just waiting for Joey to be a part of something. He's in the final 3 or 4 at Gauntlet. He's in that final match for J-Lit.
He was a
so
finalist.
People were ready for something, and they were on board. And truthfully, as weird as it was, the way things worked out, all those cards stacking up in the deck led to a great showing here.
Like I said, once the schedules and things came together, it became more about, okay, like let's make it matter, let's build a story, and let's make
that's what happened.
Let's make it about Joey and make people care when Joey wins, instead of just hot shotting the belt on him.
Right. Well, and Joey's a guy that I think really fits the aesthetic of AIW. He's a guy you can put in there with Scott Norton and Glacier, and he's going to make these guys look like $1 million. He's going to make them look like they haven't stopped wrestling, like it's still the mid to late 90s and they're on Monday night. and he's going to go, and he's a guy you can put in there with facade, and he's going to blow your minds and throw his body all over the place and have this insane match.
Yeah, I think Joey Janela really embodies independent wrestling as a whole. He's not a one-trick pony. He's and to me, I think he is the guy right now. No questions asked. The guy in independent wrestling. I don't think that there is a talent that's hotter than him across the board. And that says a lot for a guy that pretty much never even trained to be a wrestler. He was just a student of the game. He'll tell you, he went to hundreds of seminars to try to learn how to be a wrestler, and it's finally paying off. And another thing about Joey Janela, he has a really good attitude. There's never an issue when you book Joey Janela, and I think that probably has a lot to do with why he's getting opportunities all over the world, essentially. But I'm happy that he's one of the guys representing the company, going forward from Absolution.
Joey Janela learned how to wrestle doing seminars, you say?
Yes.
Oh, wow. So I don't know if we mentioned that earlier in the podcast, which maybe we did, maybe we didn't. But it turns out AIW's got a seminar with Dean Malenko coming up on September 15th. Might have a couple spots available still if you're somebody trying to learn how to wrestle. So
I think there might be three available.
Yeah, sign up for that, folks. So that's that match. The next match at Absolution is a rematch of sorts. It is another four-way. It's a four-way tag match. It happened at Gauntlet for the Gold. Kind of stole the show there. And
not even kind of. It definitely did.
Yeah,
it was
well,
a match of the
listen,
year
I want to
contender.
give the Gauntlet its due, but it's an unbelievable spectacle that they put on at Gauntlet for the Gold, and it's a four-way tag match. The same exact four teams happening in Absolution for the tag titles, to Infinity and Beyond, Crazy Pain, DJZ and Laredo Kid, and Facade with Flip Kendrick. Watch the match. It is amazing, everything that they do, all sorts of wonderful things.
I guess the big story is the Flip Kendrick injury.
And that's what I'm going to say. And then we have the Flip Kendrick injury. He's coming off the top, supposed to go to the outside.
Does a double backflip.
The double rotation, the moonsault.
Double moonsault.
Which he's done clean before. I think there was a lot of people that aren't familiar with him are like, well, why do you go for that?
He has
done it
before.
and hit it
This wasn't a
clean
new
before.
thing. This wasn't its Absolution, and I'm going to
throw it against the wall and let's see if I can hit it. He's done it flawlessly in the past,
and
multiple
times.
And he hits his head. It's a very scary situation. I'd never seen anything like that. His words can't even describe like what his face looked like immediately. Luckily, there was some nurses there. Chandler's mom also there.
Yeah.
The nurse. Pedro has some
medical training. So
Derek Direction's girlfriend.
Yeah.
Was there. She's a nurse.
So there was a lot of people there. They got him taken care of very quickly. The science guy, Jim Nye, and drives him to the emergency room. I know several people went and stayed with him. He ends up not getting treated till about 7:00 in the morning.
Yeah, they had posted that he was there. When he finally posted that he was leaving, it was, I think, 6-7 o'clock the next morning.
And he ends up with 10 stitches, which it could have been way worse.
Well, and that was part of, they were waiting on results. I think they had said on broken bones. They thought they were going to need to do plastic surgery to reconstruct his face.
And that's the one thing we say. I know a lot of people follow us along on Twitter, and they've maybe seen the updates, but a lot of people don't and only listen to this podcast. Or now at this point you've watched Absolution and you have no idea what the heck the result was because you didn't go back on social media. Miraculously, Flip was able to get stitches, and that was it.
It really was
best case scenario.
I would say it really was a best case scenario outcome.
I mean, probably a concussion.
Very scary.
I believe he had a concussion.
I talked to him a few days later, and he was already back to work, and he said the swelling was going down, and he was feeling better. I've tried to stay in contact with him as much as possible, but I also don't want to be overbearing on him. But he says the healing process is going well. So, all I can say is, shout out to Flip Kendrick, hopefully a speedy recovery, and hopefully this does not derail your pro wrestling career. because he's been a long time asset to AIW. And
He's always been an MVP for AIW.
And I would hate for this to be the I guess the final moment, so to speak.
Right.
So the ball's kind of in his court. He was kind of out of wrestling for the most part, except for AIW up until this point. So I'm just gonna kind of give him his space and see how he feels.
Doors
in a couple
always
weeks.
Open situation.
But yeah, that's really the story of the match. Up until that point, it was awesome. After that point, it was just kind of like everyone was a little bit in shock.
Let me pull back the curtain here quite a bit, John. I'm going to ask you a question because a lot of people have posed this question to me, and I heard it asked that night, and I've heard it asked since. The initial ending when we had this 4-way Gauntlet for the Gold involved the taser. It's Gringo Loco. He's coming out of a heart attack. He gets the taser, and To Infinity and Beyond wins the title. The finish to this match that night as well, even after what happened with Flip, it involves this taser. As the guy that runs the show, in hindsight, do you think, maybe, gosh, I wish that kind of wasn't an end to that match? Because coming out of that, I don't know how you switch. But
you can't switch. You can't switch it once.
No,
once it's in motion.
You're not gonna be able to.
It is. It just is what it is. It's an unfortunate situation. But those guys coming in, they're in shock. That's all they know is what they got to get to at that point. You know what I mean? There's really not more of an audible to pull. There's not headsets. This isn't WWE. We can't. We can't call things on the fly like that.
And maybe that's
and everybody that could have made those decisions, myself included, were with Flip Kendrick in the locker room.
Yeah.
And I maybe would have been the guy that honestly relays that to somebody, but again, with everybody else too.
And there's no way that could have changed. It just was what it was at this point.
And so there's your answer, folks. I think sometimes that's one of the things that a lot of people miss is, look, this isn't WWE. There aren't guys. Our referees don't have headsets. They don't have earpieces in, and somebody in the back saying, "Oh, do this instead. Do this instead." So, as dire of a situation it was, we got to roll with what we got there, folks. And honestly, maybe that's a blessing in disguise because that's such a big thing. The guys know they got to get to it. You know what I mean? It kind of helps them feed towards the rest of it.
I mean, unfortunately, after the Flip Kendrick injury, the show unfortunately had to go on, but the crowd was pretty much punched out after seeing that.
For that match, I think they were.
Yes.
I felt like because I was concerned with the main event coming, that it had just completely deflated the crowd. At least live, it felt like they came back for that main event.
And that's what I was going to say. Then
speak to that, Flip Kendrick actually just texted me.
Oh.
He said he's doing good. He actually went back to the gym and started working out today.
All right. There you go. Well, and then there we go. We lead into the main event of the night. And again, as we talk about, AIW is one of those places we try to build stories, try to get you behind people.
This is a story.
This is a fantastic example of that story. It's the Absolute Championship match. Tim Donst is your champion. He has just been making Josh Prohibition nuts for the last year that he's had the title, and then he lost it to Donst at Gauntlet for the Gold. Hot Sauce, Tracy Williams is involved in this match. He's a guy who had a chance to win it at Gauntlet for the Gold, didn't, but then thanks to J-Lit, he wins the J-Lit tournament,
so
and the crowd has always been behind Hot Sauce for the better part of a year now. He gets his shot, and then if there is no better story in AIW from the year 2016 and going midway into 2017, I mean, I ask you to find me a better story than that of Louis Linden, the captain of the ship, the Gauntlet of the Gold winner in 2017, and there he is in this 4-way as well because he earned his title shot.
I love him.
Lewis is fantastic. He's another guy, obviously, right alongside Flip. He's been a long, long time. Just an MVP, does whatever is asked.
One of the most underrated guys on all of independent wrestling.
Talk about emotional investment into a match.
And I feel if Flip doesn't get hurt right beforehand, that is awful for Louis Linden, who is his brother. as many people know.
Right.
He's got to see that, and then he's got to go do this main event. But I feel if that doesn't happen with Flip Kendrick, the crowd is even more on fire,
and they still work. We give them credit, and I think a lot of it too is because we got to see Flip for the most part move under his own power, leaving there. But yeah, the crowd were still on fire once these guys start coming out for this match.
And I mean, the match is great. Just the perfect main event style match. We don't have to go into the whole thing. The only unfortunate incident to happen there is Josh Prohibition did suffer an injury, and he's kind of up in the air on shows going forward after this.
Well, because he almost didn't make it to Absolution.
Right. He's been dealing with an injury. He's kind of, touch and go after this as of now, but he goes out and he does the main event, and it truly is. It's just I feel it's perfect main event style. You know what I mean? It's not.
Yeah.
And there's a difference. There's indie main event and there's main event style, and I feel that this is main event style.
Is main event, yeah.
This is storytelling. This is pro wrestling. This isn't gonna be a 5-star match by any means. It's a totally different presentation. Which I prefer and I like, and this is this is a lot of sacrificing main events on other shows and building stories to finally get to this point to where I feel it went as good as possible, and knowing how the show was going to conclude with Nick Gage making his surprise return, which that had been booked for months.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. Right when you thought, especially the fans, because these shows obviously they go later into the evening. Match is over. Tim Donst wins. People kind of starting to file out.
And that was one of my
people start running out, and
that was one of my biggest fears. Is I was like, if we don't get to it quick, we're gonna lose the crowd, like physically lose the crowd before Gage comes out.
And I told Traxler, I said, as soon as Pedro finishes saying, or Steve finishes saying, see, you still can't get over, man.
That's okay.
As soon as Steve finishes saying Donst, hit that fucking Metallica.
And he did. I mean, that was because I was like, man, if they played Donst music and then...
No, I said no Donst music. I said right to Metallica.
Because that was... Carson was on commentary with me for that match. And he's da-da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, no, Gage's music is playing already. So I was like, I don't want to interrupt you, but that's not Tim Donst's music. Yeah. Because I wanted that moment
you hear the gong, the bell's gong.
And people started running back into the building.
Literally. I mean, I saw people sprint out of the bleachers to the guardrail.
People were coming back in. People
were flipping.
Thrift store jobber is losing his mind. Adam Laporta.
Laporta almost put a hole in the gym floor.
Adam Laporta and Dustin Alberti slamming the guardrail into the ground. Joe Norris had to yell at them.
Yeah, people are losing their minds for Nick Gage.
Nick Gage goes into the crowd.
Nick Gage does what he does. He cuts a promo so loud. He's screaming so loud that he fucking tops out the mics. And there's no way that you can even hear this promo on the DVD because he's screaming so loud that he just peaks the mics at everything he's saying.
Blew him out.
He blows out the mics, and God knows what he said, but it was very emotional.
I will say that's another one. Is he did say,
and I say I think
it's because of Chandler Biggins that I'm here right now,
and it killed him that we
said
had
it more colorfully than
we had to he could not come out for the 10 bell because we did not want to ruin that surprise.
Yeah, couldn't have it.
And he understood that, and he just sat back and he waited for his moment, but he had been down in
the entire show.
He was in a hidden room downstairs for hours. There's people there's people on the show that didn't know that he was there.
Yeah.
Keeping secrets like a fucking goddamn Sting was coming back or something.
It was Ronda Rousey here again? My goodness. Yeah, and then that ended the show. A little known fact to end the show. It wasn't Tim Donst or Nick Gage that walked out of that gymnasium with the Absolute title. I'll just have you guys know.
Who was it?
It was Steve Guy.
Oh.
It got left in the middle of the ring. I went in the ring, and it's just sitting there, and everybody started.
Hopefully you FedExed it to the champ.
Yeah. first and last time ever that I will get a Steve fucking Guy chant. It was happening, and I was like, oh, I better pick this up, give it to the crowd, and they enjoyed it, and then went back to Don's. That was the show. That was Absolution. Thorne, up to you here as we wind down. We had a new after party location.
This is a little long. We don't need to go into all the after party.
There you go.
Stuff.
All right.
I will say the two things that I will say that happened. One, since we had a Horseman at Absolution, I walked into the bar. I threw down $100. I said, "Give me 20 shots," and I started passing those out to everyone that I could see.
Yep.
And then at one point, after I consumed quite a bit of those shots and various other of these alcoholic slushies they had there,
yeah.
Shout out to those alcoholic slushies. We're going back to the Funhouse in September. I hope. I hope we could work that out. We're working on a deal.
We're trying to figure something out.
But I think people had a lot of fun there. But anyway, the only other thing I did there, since it was Swaggle's last night for a while, walked right up to him, kicked him right on the ground.
I was going to ask about that one. I saw the tweets, and I'm a family man. I don't get to go to these after parties. I head home, and I saw a tweet, and I was like, what happened?
Yeah, he got kicked to the ground.
Right in front of Tom Lawler. He thought it was fucking hilarious. And we'll just leave it at that. The after parties are the after parties. And if this wasn't so long, we can get more into detail on them. But we're going to have to leave this one up to everyone's imagination.
Yep. Sorry, but not sorry it was so long, folks. We want to make sure that we covered everything that we were all going through leading up to the show with Chandler. Of course, we want to cover the show for you itself. So I hope you guys enjoyed this and appreciate this episode. For Matt Wadsworth and owner of AIW, John Thorne, my name is Steve Guy, and we'll talk to you guys next week here on AIW's The Card is Going to Change.
Go buy some DVDs on Smart Mark Video.